I love it. Make sure I'm not getting any more messages, and we'll go ahead and get started. I see a couple people trickling in on Twitch. First thing I want to cover is event-wise, we have meetups scheduled now for next Wednesday. Christian McHugh is going to be talking about Zabbix and salt integration. He's going to be doing that in the evening hours US time, and then repeat the same talk the following, 2 weeks after that, August 5th, for the audiences in Europe. So I think moving forward, as much as possible, we're going to do all meetup talks twice so we can fit both audiences. Release-wise, we have the point release coming out Monday. Are there any changes or updates to that I need to know about? All right, I will take that as an,
Sorry, I couldn't get off mute. I don't think so. I do need to still update the project board. There were a few tickets and PRs that didn't make it in that will move into magnesium, and that'll be updated by the end of the day. And that's probably the only thing. And DWAS, unless you have anything?
I don't know.
That's it.
I forgot to put put your questions in the chat. All right, cool. So next up, my life has basically been in PR Merge Jam planning for the past week. So we are underway. We have the Merge Jam ready to go. It is going to be July 28th through 30th. It's going to run really around the clock, but every day we'll have kind of an 8-hour time box that members of the core team will be able to support you. The plan is to have that via Zoom and then just stream to Twitch the whole time. So we will be kicking off Tuesday morning at Tuesday, July 28th at 8 a.m. Mountain with just kind of some quick little opening remarks. I imagine there will probably be some people that need to set their stuff up, though we highly recommend you set up your environment ahead of time, review the list of outstanding PRs ahead of time as well. In the coming days, there will be instructions coming out about what to expect from the PR Merge Jam, how to plan, and then what PRs we're looking at for that event. And then there will be also a more detailed schedule coming out. Other things that we'll have, we're going to do the event. We're going to wrap up the event with kind of a retrospective recap of what all we accomplished. We'll also be giving you daily updates as to what we've accomplished. And then after our recap, we'll be doing some lightning talks and just kind of a virtual social hour for people to hang out. So again, if people are interested in giving lightning talks, 5 minutes on how you're using salt for your own projects, how you're using salt at work, and I'm also open to kind of more general DevOps and SecOps type topics as well. So this is a real nice informal way to get your feet wet talking in front of a group. I think that's everything for the Merge Jam. A lot of thanks to Wayne and Gareth and Sage for helping put this together. We are underway. Does anybody have anything to add about this Merge Jam or questions about it?
We have a document on how to set up your environment if you need somewhere. Do we have that available? A link here or something? I just don't remember where we put it.
What, the setup document? I think we're still finalizing it, right?
Oh, good question. So we can, should we put it on the community website?
Yeah, we'll put it on the community website once I want to look it over one more time with you and me and Wayne and just make sure everything's good to go. So I figured we'd put that out. I don't want to detract from the point release information, so I figured we'd put that out like early next week, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah, and we can put it in, I think I saw that you made a channel in Slack for it. We can pin it there as well as in a few other places just so it's available.
Yep, there's also a Slack channel. And of course, you don't have to be there for the whole 8 hours, all 3 days. This is just kind of the window of time that we're doing it. So feel free to stop in, work on your one PR, go out if you have questions, if you just want to watch what's happening. Everybody's welcome to join in whatever capacity they can. understand why. Perhaps some week the Zoom meeting links will not be broken for this event. This week is not that week. Anyway, so next up we have I know there's been a lot of talk about the triage process and some confusion around it, so we wanted to do kind of high-level overview of the triage process as well as answer any questions about triage that you might have.
Yeah, so I can start. The triage process internally is getting revamped to make it a little more simpler and to try to put some automation in place where we can this next release cycle. There's some things that we would like to do, some suggestions that we've had, like a greeting bot that would help us just say, hey, thank you for this, and things like that. So that process is going to get simplified internally. Externally, it should look fairly similar. Issues come in, they get reproduced and verified, labeled, and then they get ready for release planning, either into the current release or the next release, sort of ad hoc. Some of that depends on what it is. Features need some help with process. I don't know that we have a ton of process around that, so those usually get approved, and we look at those if they need to be a step if they're bigger, and that's kind of it. So I think it needs a little more process around that as well, and we're looking into that this time, and trying to make that clearer and more transparent, and making sure that we also can do that a little quicker. Gareth, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, that definitely sums it up. We realize that like our triage process right now is kind of clunky. Definitely need some improvements. So as Sage said, we're going to kind of revamp a lot of the process, make sure that everyone that's doing it is on the same page as far as like how it's supposed to work, following up on issues. That way we don't end up with issues that get triaged but never see any like follow-up ever again. And we definitely want to involve the community in this process. It's just a matter of figuring out the best approach. So if anyone has any suggestions, by all means, let us know.
So just keep an eye out as we update people on triage and we work through all of those processes. And then we had a community member, Michael had actually made a suggestion that we talk about Salt Virtual Terminal and TTY streams via Thorium. He and I had some back and forth conversation, so I wanted to clarify a little bit more about what he was wanting to ask and what he was wanting to discuss. And so I basically was asking us kind of how to string the right tools together and how to use these things together. So I'm going to let Michael go ahead, and if you don't mind asking your question or stating what it is that you're looking to discuss, and then we can talk about it from there.
Hey, thank you. Yeah, so I'm not sure if all of my message got in there. I kind of covered myself by saying our other applicable tools. So I'm not sure if Thorium or the virtual terminal or even TTY streams is the right way to phrase it. But I'm really just looking for getting the standard output from a state run into the standard output on the command line on the master. and I'm not big on Python. I've dabbled. I've even submitted a couple pull requests, but I don't know much about the virtual terminal and how that ties into Salt's infrastructure and the command line. So I'm not sure if that's the right path or what have you. But my use case was trying to get the stream of the standard output in while I'm running a state apply on the master, instead of having to run the Salt call on the minion to get the real-time stream of the standard output. And I'm just wondering if anyone's done that or thought of a way to string those pieces together. With the infrastructure of Salt, I'm not sure if that works right out of the box. If it does, I'd be interested to see. Does anyone have any other questions? I could clarify a couple of things about what use case I'm trying to get at.
Not really a question, just a comment. One of the challenges you're going to find with what you're trying to do is just the general way that Salt works, especially when you're running commands from the master, because it's basically firing commands onto the event bus. It doesn't necessarily know if and when what is going to get returned is going to return. So oftentimes, like when you target something from the master to a minion, it's almost never in real time that you're getting those results back. So if that's something you want, running it directly on the minion might be your best bet. Does anyone else have any comments on that?
Yeah, I was just going to say a similar type of thing is, just the question that you'd mentioned you have some particular information about your use case, but generally speaking, that's not the use case that that Salt goes for. And there are ways to get around it with like throwing information onto the event bus or doing some other things, but generally speaking, you're typically not going to get that type of real-time streaming of output. And for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah, I mean,
one thing
I could
go ahead, US.
it could be possible, right? Like, it's not impossible that someone could write something to actually do this, but the big thing that came to mind for me was the fact that if you're like, let's say you target 10 minions and you have all 10 minions returning standard out and standard error on the Salt command line on the master, how, it's not going to be clear what output's coming from which minions. And even if we did sort of go back and forth between the different minions, it's going to get kind of messy pretty quickly. So I would say that.
Yep. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yes, I had, because I've tried to string this together a little bit with running Salt calls in a screen and then kind of tailing a log so I can kind of monitor the output and have different threads. So when I envision running the standard output directly back to the master, when you're running that in that specific shell, it would probably just be for a single minion return, and the possibility of threading the returns for multiple, for if you're applying to multiple minions, threading those into other processes that you can tap into. I imagine a bunch of screens running, and that might not be the right tool, but you can imagine some kind of X window or VNC session specifically following that output of each minion's return. So that's kind of where my mind is going.
The suggestion I would make is to look at some of the existing returners that Salt ships with. And then you might need to write like a custom returner that is then like is capturing the outputs from the commands that you're targeting the minions with. I think that is potentially your best bet here.
Okay, I didn't even think of returners. Yeah.
If you definitely want to run these from the master.
Yeah, I mean, my question would be why is it important to you to get the standard output as it happens?
So for my specific, the reason that I would want it, because it hit me a couple times, is either the output is going to be too large for the return, so I'd constantly be like upping the buffer, the message buffer limit, or it's just going to hang for whatever reason. Maybe it's prompting a password for some reason on some kind of curl request or what have you. Something's holding up the return from the minion. I'm not from the master exactly immediately aware of that problem. If I'm looking at it via salt call, I know what's going on.
And that may just be like, I guess, sort of a question of process, right? As you develop your salt states, possibly doing that with salt call to figure out, okay, this is, these are some pitfalls that I might run into here or there. Because once you get your salt states configured properly, they really should be more or less fire and forget. You'll care about the end result, but typically you really shouldn't be caring a lot about the intermediate process. At least that's been my experience, and I think is fairly widely shared as well.
Yeah, I agree. I tend to just apply this use case during my development of the salt state or something like that. I have hit it where I've automated like Docker builds. So things change or something breaks or some kind of widespread infrastructure outage is causing some problem that's holding up what would normally be just a set and forget. But it takes, spinning up the development environment to get back into that kind of where I need to be to look at that specific run instead of, so yeah, it's a very, very small use case. And I like the idea of returners. I might see if I can do something with that. I don't expect it to be like a default salt feature, mainly just because, like you say, it's the way salt runs. It's specifically competing with that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what you would need to do is while the command is running, fire events on the event bus with the output that you're looking for. But even then, it's going to get hairy because when do you do that, right? Like not every state is running a command. Some states are doing things via Python APIs. So that's, like when you're modifying a file with salt, there's going to be no standard output. So you're only really going to be able to do that when salt calls into the command module. And in that case, again, you would need to basically read standard out and then, for lack of a better word, stream it back to the master via events.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate the discussion. I hope maybe I can submit a pull request for a new returner.
Okay, so hopefully that was helpful, that you got the answer you needed. Does anybody have anything else to add? All right. Well, the next up is Wayne. This is probably going to just be a recurring theme, a recurring topic is building tests, but it's especially relevant with the merge jam coming up because in order for things to be merged, they need to have passing tests. And so Wayne's just going to talk a little bit about how it is that we build tests, and then if people have questions, happy to answer those questions. And then, of course, every week he does the test clinics during the Twitch stream, so those are a great time to have your individual tests work through as well.
Yep, sure. Thanks, Cassandra. So just a, I guess, quick refresher maybe on tests. Starting off just with the fundamental idea of why we test. And we test so we can have a stable salt. Tests are an extra form of communication when you're sharing your code. If you submit a pull request with some code, it's not necessarily obvious to everybody who looks at it exactly what's going on there. We weren't developing it. We aren't in the same mindset you were or have been for the last however long it's been. So it's not always obvious exactly what is this code supposed to be doing and why. So having tests is another way to communicate that to other people. The other thing about tests is that, as humans, we are really bad at doing boring, repetitive stuff. Like nobody wants to do boring, repetitive stuff. And testing is boring and repetitive. On the other hand, computers are really fantastic at doing boring, repetitive stuff. You can have them run the exact same test 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and they will continue doing it until the computer melts down or the heat death of the universe or they lose power or something. And they'll never complain. And so it makes it very, very useful when you want to ensure just that things are operating the same way on a day-to-day basis. So that's kind of just to set the expectation about why it is that we want tests. And then there's, from the SALT perspective, we have a couple of different types of tests that we may want to write. If you ask a developer, hey, what's a unit test? If you ask 3 developers, you'll probably get 4 different opinions. It's one of those things that we just haven't nailed down the terminology yet as an entire profession. So when we say unit tests or functional tests or integration tests, those are kind of our 3 primary test types. The integration tests, those are going to be your most robust, complete, comprehensive tests, but they're also going to be slow. With everything in software development, you're making trade-offs. The most secure, bug-free software that there possibly is the one that doesn't exist because you just didn't write it. No bugs, no security vulnerabilities, nothing. It also isn't very useful. So you've got to make that trade-off. And tests are the same way, right? You can make a absolutely 100% code coverage test case that is entirely comprehensive and tells you every possible thing that you can know, but it also probably is going to take 2 years to run, much less write. So you've got to strike this balance. And so integration tests are one of the tests that you could write. These tests spin up a master, they spin up a minion, they may spin up proxy minions, and just have this, they're complete end-to-end. They test the network communication, they test the actual underlying system. It's just the entire, everything that could possibly be tested. Now, this is great because we absolutely will know if something changes. It's not so great because it's really, really slow most of the time. So there are other types of tests. Functional tests, which we don't quite have supported yet, but that should be coming here in this next release. But functional tests will allow you to kind of take a slight step down. So instead of spinning up a master, spinning up a minion, and doing the network communication, you can just spin up a module and actually hit the underlying system. So it gives you a little bit more of the guarantees about what's happening underneath. It's actually going to be calling third-party libraries. It's actually going to be calling, shelling out to the system. It's actually going to be hitting the file system. It's actually going to be creating a user, for instance. These functional tests, they still give you that extra assurance that whatever the underlying system is, that interface between SALT and the system is still stable, is still working correctly. If functional tests are written well, then if we run this test suite on the most up-to-date, latest and greatest Arch system, for instance, and we get all passing tests, then we can pretty much guarantee that it's the underlying things and how they communicate with SALT and how we communicate with them is still stable. If it crashes, then we should be able to figure out exactly what's changed in the underlying system and then go ahead and account for that. And then the next step in this spectrum is the unit tests. And from our perspective, a unit test is just a test that doesn't hit the underlying system and doesn't require a master and a minion to be spun up. It's just going to be running completely in memory. They should be extremely fast. Currently, we can run, I think it's about 9,000 tests within 20 minutes on Linux. And many of those are unit tests. So these unit tests, you can mock things out, ideally or not, but if you need to, it's there's nothing wrong with mocking it, especially some of the parts of SALT that may be a little bit more legacy and weren't really written with tests in mind. Having the ability to mock things out becomes very useful because it may be written in such a way that, if you want to test one line of change, especially if it's a fix right in the middle of a function, and that function is 50 lines long, well, if it's calling off to a bunch of different things, shelling out, calling off to the network, doing other, really intensive operations, then it's possible to be able to say, I really don't care about all that. I'm just going to write a test that just treats that as invariant. It says, I believe that all of that's going to be okay. And assuming that all of that works right, I just want to make sure that if this line over here is doing what it's supposed to be doing, that everything passes. So unit tests allow you to write code like that and tests like that. And so that's just kind of a good level set, and either a refresher if you've heard it before, or a good introduction to kind of how we do testing consult. If you've got any questions, I guess you can ask those now. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Tuesday afternoon, Thursday morning, Central Time, I run test clinics on their Twitch stream. So you're more than welcome to bring other questions that you have, or you know, if you're writing tests and you're just stuck and you say, I don't know how I'm going to test this code, or if you come across, you know, you're trying to write a fix and you can write the fix, but there's just no tests that exist, so you don't even have a clue where to start. By all means, bring those to the test clinic, and I can help out and get you started writing tests. But with that, are there any questions?
Oh, Krill has a question. How can I bring a PR to a test clinic and just post a comment during the stream?
Yeah, sure. So if you want to bring a PR to the test clinic, you can either ping me. I'm on Slack and IRC, Wayne W on IRC, and just Wayne Werner, core engineer, in the community Slack, or let me know during an open hour. Yeah, just pretty much any way like that, or yeah, on this Twitch stream. You know, I try to keep an eye on the chat. Sometimes it doesn't work so well, but yeah, any of those options are good options. And then yeah, so if it's something big, definitely kind of saying, hey, bring it ahead of time so I can at least take a look at it. But if it's, you know, if it's a small question or just kind of how do I get started or something like that, definitely posting it in the, you know, just like as a comment during the stream. But if it's you know, if it's something larger, then having a little bit of a heads up helps, because then I can you know, at least wrap my head around what's going on beforehand, because sometimes it'll take a little while to just orient myself.
Yeah, and to jump off of that, we've actually had at least twice we've had people bring up their PRs and propose them as open hour topics. So it's also an option if you want to open it to a broader conversation or get more feedback, we can add it to an open hour agenda and work through it. Those always lead to some interesting conversations when it happens too.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, additional questions or comments or anything? All right, well, as always, if you have topic suggestions or things you'd like to talk about in the open hour, let me know. Questions about the PR Merge Jam or meetups, also let me know about all that. We are kind of in a cadence where events are happening regularly. So, you know, want to hear what it is that everybody wants to learn and everybody has questions about, please reach out to me anytime. And if nobody has anything else to add, I will see you all next week. I hear feedback and I'm trying to decide if it's a question or a snail joke coming up.
I was just going to say thank you. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Long time user, first time joining. So.
Nice. Well, hopefully come back.
Glad to.
All right, everybody. I'll see y'all later then. Have a good day.
I got something.
Oh, okay.
Yesterday I saw an article where snails make the best pets, and I'm just wondering if DWAS is going to have additions to the family.
Why
No,
do they make?
no, I'm not going to.
I'm afraid to ask, but why do they make good pets? What's the logic here?
I just saw the title. I didn't want
Okay.
to dive in.
Well, you know, they can't run very fast, so you know they're nice and dapper. So speaking of additions to the family, I have a new plant
What is that?
called a crested euphorbia. Some type of little cactus thing. We got it at Lowe's, and I thought it looked like some sort of creepy monster, which is awesome.
It looks like an alien.
Yeah.
I'll start dancing
I
for
feel
you. or
like your virtual background is adding to the creepiness of it.
yes.
Yes.
Some Little Shop of Horrors vibes over here.
Feed me, Seymour. Feed me.
My daughter has a goldfish massacre bowl going. Well, they keep dying, and she just keeps buying new ones and putting them in.
It's because goldfish are really dirty, filthy fish. Their offal is high in ammonia, so you have to change their water like really, really frequently to also kill other fish if you put them in there.
Well, that's her problem. Is she's like always putting her hand in there and playing with them, and it's like every day she's changing the water. It's probably all
Goldfish aren't-
chlorine from the. I don't know.
All the hand washing because of COVID. But like goldfish
You got to put
aren't
those
pets
chemicals
that you
in too,
pet.
Shane.
I know. It's I told her, but I don't know.
Oh wow.
Is she
Tell her to
learning
quit-
life
quit
lessons
putting the-
early?
No, I don't think so. She's just blowing her money on goldfish. I mean, every day she's got 5 more new ones in there. I think it's a little bowl like this. She's got like 10 of them in there. I think that's like too many for the size of bowl. And
That's
then-
too many.
Probably.
Yeah. Good times.
Yeah.
Get her a bigger bowl.
I don't want her to have them at all. not gonna promote this, but I don't know how long I can watch the massacre before I'm just gonna have to step in.
Zombie goldfish. All right, well, that concludes this edition of Pet Talk. Talk to you later. Bye.